All right. Good morning, guys. Um, so from last week, Danny, you weren't there. Did you get a chance to look at the homework?
No. I
Very
mean,
good. Well, this.
I'm all yeah, and I'll meet with you after class, and I'll message you, talk to any stuff to you if I can.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, no problem. Um, Cheryl, Linda, how did you guys' homework go? Cheryl, you sent me yours,
Yes.
and Linda, how'd yours go? Did you have trouble with it?
No, I turned it in. I think it went well.
Okay, awesome. Well, how about we just go over it all together? It'll be good for Danny to see. And Elena will be joining us later, she said. So, here, let me share my screen then. So the homework was basically just creating a about me module that would just ask you three things: your name, your age, and your favorite color, and just display that information back to you. So just a really simple binding. So I just want to start really slow, just to make sure that everybody got the hang of it. And then the next part was a little bit more tricky. Was doing basically the calculator we did in class, but with a drop down with a select box. So still not too bad, but I just want to get you guys, slowly acquainted with these things and comfortable. So let's go ahead and let's start this. All right, this is gonna be fun. Sorry, guys, just cleaning up all these VS Code windows. Okay. Okay, so so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna just create just an Angular project called homework in here. So from last week. So ng new and just homework. I'm not gonna add routing. We're just gonna use regular CSS. It's gonna create a whole bunch of stuff for us. And Linda, Cheryl, did you guys have any issues with the select box? Because that's something that we did not go over in class.
I didn't use a select box.
Oh, what'd you use?
She just used buttons.
Oh, okay. Well,
Are we in the calculation?
yeah. Huh?
I just used the button.
Oh, okay. Well,
Do the operator.
that's okay. You're supposed to use a select box for it. That's because the buttons. That's what we did in class, so that wasn't really a challenge.
Yeah, I didn't have problems. I used the select box and I didn't have problems with it.
Okay, awesome. So here, first thing is we're gonna create a about me component. So, well, first let me just start this. So I'm going to just go into my homework directory, and we just do ng serve so we can see what this looks like before I change anything.
I overlooked that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'll redo it.
No, you don't have to. I just wanted just to get you guys, comfortable with other pieces. So, Danny, this is the, very basic. You create a new Angular application. This is what it looks like. So, we're gonna basically just gut this, remove everything. So what displays is app component for you. So I'm gonna just erase all that. It should refresh this for me. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and create another component. I'm just going to open up another tab here, and I'm going to say ng generate component about me. So it's going to kebab case everything for us. That just means make it lowercase, and the next uppercase letter would just be a hyphen and the next letter. So, and then we're going to, in here, just include our app about me selector. I should just save this, and I should immediately see this here. About me works. Okay, awesome. So next thing we want to do in our about me component is add the markup for our input boxes, right? So I'm going to say name. We're going to do input. We're going to do our banana in a box for ng model, and that's going to equal name. Let's go do a break here. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm doing this in the CSS file. That's awkward. Let's try this again. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to just copy these also for age, and then favorite item. So here, this is going to be age, and this is going to be favorite. Age, I can go ahead and make a number, not a big deal. So, and then I wanted you guys to just do something like, hi, my name is name, I am age, years old. I guess we can just do favorite is my favorite. Okay, so we should be seeing something here, and we're gonna get a big fat error here. Can anyone tell me why? What did we forget? Because I want to get you guys better at problem solving and like troubleshooting, debugging your code. So if you guys see this here, uncaught error, template parse errors cannot bind to ng model since it's not a known property of input. What does that tell us?
The name, it's having problems with the name.
Well, not the name, but this ng model that we're using in here, it's not aware of it because we forgot to add the forms module to our app module.ts. So if you see this error, that's what it means. And you can always, Google is your best friend here because you can just copy paste that, put it in here, and it's going to, any one of these answers is going to tell you, go ahead and import the forms module into, your Angular module. So any one of these. So we can copy paste this, and I went ahead and just gave you guys this add forms module, so we can use ng module to our app module.ts. So let's go ahead and do that. Angular whack forms. Okay. So if you put in the package first, and then in here you can have it basically autocomplete of everything that's inside. So that makes it easier if you're not quite sure what you're looking for. Anything that you import that has a module in it, that always goes into your imports section. So I'm going to import our forms module and make sure. Yep. Okay, so that's all we need to do. So if I save this now, and I go back to our code, I should see, okay, so hi, my name is, I am years old, and blah is my favorite. Okay, so let's actually try this. So Sergi, I'm 35, and coding is my favorite. Okay, cool. So that works. That was pretty quick. Do you guys have any questions on this? Okay. Danny, how are you feeling on this?
I'm catching up. I promise I'm gonna watch last week's video.
Okay.
I'm learning.
Well, if you have questions, let me know, because I don't want you to think this is like, magic or sorcery happening in front of you. It probably seems that way if you, but. So let's do the second one now, and that was our calculator. So I'm going to ng generate just another component. I'm going to call this thing calc. And now we're going to close all this here. I'm gonna just go ahead and comment out my about me and add in my app dash calc. Can someone remind me what controls this here? Where can I change what my custom selector or my tag name is?
I don't understand. It's hard to hear because there's a meeting going outside. So
Oh, you guys don't have the doors closed?
We do.
we do, and it's
Oh.
really loud.
Gee. Okay, you guys turn up the TV.
Like where that name comes from?
Yeah, where if I wanted to change this tag name, where can I do that?
In the, I think it's in the TS file, right? Of the component.
Yep, so if I go into my calc component.ts, it is this selector right here, because I can change it to say app-math, for example, and obviously this is going to freak out saying that, hey, app-calc isn't known because my app component is still pointing to this, but if I change this to, app-math, everything's going to work. So I'm going to change these things back so it's not confusing. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and in our calc component here, we're going to go ahead and just add something that asks you for two numbers and a drop down for there we go. A drop down for the operation that it's using. So I'm going to go ahead and do input type number, and again banana in a box ng model equals num1. Let's go ahead and copy this, do num2, and now our select box. So we have a couple different ways to do this. So first way, I'm going to just do the simplest way. So we're going to say, this here is just going to be our operation, our op, and then I'm going to have option value in here is going to be plus. That's all that is there. I'm just going to copy paste this a couple times. We're going to do plus, we're going to do minus, we're going to do multiplication and division. Let me know, guys, if you can see that okay, or do you want me to make that bigger?
No, it's okay.
That's okay?
No, for me.
Okay. And you guys can hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay. So even just saving this here, I should have something that, okay, I mean, this looks really terrible. There's no styling or anything, but that's okay. So we need to now have a button. I'm not even sure if I asked you guys for a button or not, but if you didn't do a button, that's okay. Oh, okay, awesome. So I asked for an equals button and then just a div to display the answer. Okay. So we're going to do a button here. I'm going to go ahead and just do on click, and we're going to do, I'm just going to say calc. This button is going to be equals, and then finally we're going to do a div with the answer. So, okay. So these are all of our components. It's going to look really crappy on here because it's basically going to be all together, and if I do something like this, I hit equals, it's going to freak out, and it's going to freak out because this underscore code, that I don't know why it does that, but this just basically means that the click handler or calc isn't a function because it's not defined in our components TS file. So if we go back here, because notice I'm calling calc here as a function, I go back into my TS. Whoops. Let's try that again. Okay, here we go. So in here, I don't have anything defined. So here, I'm going to clean a couple of these things up. Let's go ahead and just give our pieces on our front end some defaults. So I'm going to say num1 is 0, num2 is 0. I'm going to say my op is just going to default to a plus sign. And answer is also just going to default to 0. We don't have to do that, but I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So, and in this example, we don't even need our constructor or our ng on init. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove them just to keep this code as simple as possible, because I want you guys to not, until you're familiar with Angular, I want you guys to just focus on what's important, right? So here, our calc function now, what's the best way for us to do this? Because we know that we want to, basically if the operation is always plus, I can go ahead and say this dot answer is going to be this dot num1 plus this dot num2, right? So Okay, I was gonna say, why is it telling me there's error? Oh,
Then be a parameter to pass in to the calc.
we could do that, or we can do a different way. So let's do this. Just test that this works first. So if I have, 1 plus, or whatever I'm doing here, so I hit equals, nothing happens. Oh, I'm sorry guys, I suck. I did A and S like for answer, and my actual component here is actually using answer. So I'll be consistent and I'll just use answer in both places. So saving this. So I see 0 here. I can go ahead and do here 3 plus 3 equals 6. Awesome. I'm going to change this around a little bit. Since everything else is on one line, I'm going to just change this to a span so it's on the same line. Okay. So, I mean, this looks horrific, but that's okay. So, for addition, this thing works now. But if I'm doing a subtraction, obviously that's not going to work because our code isn't using any of these things here. So, and Cheryl, yeah, we could totally pass in this operator into calc, but we also have it available inside our component as op, right? So I can go ahead, I can do this as a bunch of if statements, right? The naive way would be this dot, if this dot op is, equal to a plus sign. I'm sorry, not the naive way, I guess the beginner, the entry level way. So we would do something like this. And this totally works. We'll do this for the other operations. But the slightly better, easier way to do this is using just a switch and a case statement. Because I can say switch on this dot op. And essentially what I'm going to do is case on plus. I'm going to go ahead and just run this. And then I'm just going to break. Let me just remove these things here. And essentially, I don't know why my VS Code always does that. That's okay. So for subtraction, we have multiplication, and then we have division here. So, and then the benefit of doing it like this is then there's also a default case, right? So if right now there's no way for somebody to have something besides what we list, but if for whatever reason we added more things to our select box and forgot to add it in our code, then we could do something like this. Oh, you know what's funny? Answer is actually a number up here, so we can't do this. So I can just go ahead and I'll just say the answer is 0 if it's unsupported. So that's TypeScript essentially saying that we define answer up here as a number and knows 0 is a number. So it's going to make sure that we always use answer as a number. So let's save this and give this a whirl here. So we're going to do 3 plus 1 is 4. 3 minus 1 is 2. 3 times 1 is 3. And divided is the same. So if we actually increase this a little bit, we get some more interesting numbers. But that's pretty much it. So I don't think you guys, I didn't expect anyone to have problems with this. But this is just the basics of Angular, right? So just understanding the bindings, how they work, and just getting comfortable with them. Do you guys have any questions on that? Nope. Cheryl, seeing it with the select box, was that?
No, I understood.
Okay.
I didn't catch that. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. And Danny, none of it too scary?
No.
Okay, awesome. Well, last time, guys, we dove into like ng model and ngFor and all that, and Seth brought up like a really valid point. I didn't even show you guys ngIf, which is like one of the foundational pillars of Angular expressions. So we're gonna go over that a little bit and just go over some of these more basic things before we dive back into the more advanced topics like doing bindings across different components and parent-child components, things like that. So here, so that was our homework. I'm going to leave that all alone, and I'm going to just do in Classroom. I'm going to just create essentially the same exact thing here. I'm just going to do ng new, and I'm just going to. This is more basics of Angular, so that's what I'm going to call my project here.
Here, G, can you present?
I'm sorry. Thank you, guys. Every time. Okay. So it's creating it. And you guys just want to watch me and then follow along later, because what I'm going to do is just show you guys ngIfs, and then I'm going to let you guys loose to go ahead and try it, or maybe, how about this, guys, to prevent anyone wasting time, is just go ahead and create a new project called Basics Now or Basics 2 or whatever you want, because it's going to take probably, with the 36 degrees north internet, it'll probably take 10-15 minutes. So by then I'll be done lecturing and it'll be your turn to try it. So
Sounds good.
so while it's installing, I can go over it.
But I put it in a different folder, so it should be all right. Too white for that.
Don't need it. Not yet.
How did it do something about this?
Okay, let me know when you guys are ready.
No, it's mine's running, but I've got mine started.
Okay, as long as it started, then we're good there. So, okay, so the very first thing let's talk about. So the brand new project, right? No tricks here. I'm gonna just go ahead and, like as usual, just erase everything out of our app component, .html, and I'm gonna go ahead and just create a new component here. So ng generate. And we've talked about before. You don't have to type out generating components. So I'm just gonna use ngg c for generate component. And I have no idea if I just call a component if, but we'll see. Okay, awesome. I can call it if. That is so awesome. Okay.
Surprise.
So I'm going to go into my app component.html here, and let's do our app-if. And I'm going to save that. And guys, with Angular, because it's so big, especially while you're learning, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to save and view and test your code extremely often. Where essentially, I just created a component and I added it to my app component.html. It's really hard for me to, to screw that up unless I mistype something. But me just saving it and going back and viewing, making sure that it shows up, is going to prevent you from making mistakes or just catching mistakes early. So, because if you already started working on your component and it's not loading, you're not going to know at what part it actually failed, right? So inside of here, let's do a couple things here. So I'm going to do a div. And let's do this. So we're going to make just a really simple thing that with ngIfs, first let me back up. You can show and hide things based on an expression, right? So here, if I have, let's say I'm going to create just a number inside of my component here. So I'm going to say number is this certain thing. So if I go into my app component, I'm going to go ahead and let me clean all this up. There. So here, number is going to equal 42. So I'm going to save this. I see number is 42. Default stuff, secret stuff, no big deal. We can have things show and hide based on an expression, right? So I can do on this div, I can say that this default stuff is, we have the asterisk ngIf. Number is equal to 42. I could do something like that. And on my secret stuff, I can say that, hey, number has to be equal to 100. So I can do something like this, and I save my code and I see that, okay, default stuff is here, secret stuff is not. And if we look at if we inspect this, so let me actually click on this and I inspect it. I see that it's not that it's just hidden with CSS or something like that that has opacity 0 or display none. It actually is not inside of my DOM, my document object model. So it is actually hidden completely. And we see that, we have this little comment here, bindings, ngReflect, ngIf false. This is just debugging Angular telling you that, hey, something was hidden because of an ngIf. So that's your only hint that something was, hidden from screen using an ngIf. And again, if we go inside of our component here and I change this to numlock is important. Okay, to 100, I'm going to see now number and secret stuff, right? So, and these things here, these expressions, they're evaluated immediately. So this is kind of there's this, when Angular came out, there was this term, I'm not sure actually if it came out at the same time, but when I started playing with Angular, I heard this term called auto-magical. Because it's automatic and it's magical. What Angular does, it just checks these expressions for you. So some of these things it does, I still consider, auto-magical. And let's make this a little easier to understand and play with. So I'm going to just do input here. Again, an ng model, banana in a box of our number. I'm going to say type number. And this is going to fail. What did I forget to do, guys?
You didn't put it in the app component.
Yes, app component. So anytime you see this, you're like, ugh. Forms module inside of app component. Yep. I want to turn you guys into like expert debuggers. So I'm going to import forms module from @Angular whack forms. And some of these names, guys, like there is oops, it helps if I spell Angular right. Angular has, I think, literally hundreds of little packages and modules and stuff in it. So it is a huge framework, and we're just pulling in the pieces that we need. So it'll take you a little bit. You'll basically, forms module, and there's maybe one or two others that you will use. Actually, the only other one I think we'll use is HTTP client, and that's for us to connect to our Node backend and do things there, and we're actually going to do that next week. This week, I just want to get you guys a little bit more comfortable with Angular before we start bringing back the backend. Unless you're like, Sergi, let's do it now, and we can totally do it now. But so here we have, and actually let me add another break. Okay. So our code, essentially, we should see default stuff if the number is 42, and we should see secret stuff if it's 100. So let's test this. If I change my number to something that's not 42 or 100, I don't see any of those, right? If I change it to 42, I see default stuff. I see secret stuff. So those ngIfs, they're immediately evaluated expressions. The other cool piece is we can do things that, hey, if number is greater than something, or if it's less than something. So we can do full expressions in here. So yeah, if number is greater, it's going to show this. So if I do exactly 42, nothing should show up, right? But if it's less than 42, I should see secret stuff. So, and we can also, in any of these Angular expressions, we can also run functions. So for example, we want, pretend we're doing something to check if a user's password is correct, right? I can easily do, instead of this being a number here, I can go ahead and say password. I feel like I need to do this as a separate component. That's okay. We'll just do this here as password. We won't display the password, but we're going to do, we're going to write a function here that says if check password. So if it's true, then we're going to go ahead and say, hey, we'll do that secret stuff. And if check password is false, we're going to say, error, wrong password. So we can do something like this inside of our component here. I'm going to go ahead and set a number now. We have just a password. And check password, all it's going to do is return if this dot password is equal to ABC. That'll be a super secret password. And right now, so we have a couple things going on right now. We don't even have our password typed in, and it's already telling us it's the wrong password, right? That's not really cool. So that doesn't give the user, that's not really user friendly. So we can change this to say, we can wrap both these things in a div and say, hey, ngIf, only if the password is defined, right? If you type a password, then it'll go ahead and try to check the password for us. So we can go ahead and nest these ngIfs, right? Just like for loops, just like anything else. These things here are first-class citizens in Angular, meaning that there's nothing preventing you from using them anywhere inside of Angular. So you can go ahead and use them, inside of these divs. I can have more ngIfs. There's no, just like JavaScript. So here, my password, I'm going to type something. Okay, wrong password. If I do ABC, cool, that works. So this here, while you're typing, that's not really useful for a password. Usually there's a submit button or, login. How would we change this here to work that I only want it to check the password if I hit a button? What do you guys think?
Let's disable and how do you do that?
Hit the button and the click.
Yeah.
The same way we did like our calculator.
Yeah, so let's do that. So we're going to add here, we have a password, and this is kind of getting away from ngIfs, but I just want you guys to see how we bring these components together. So I'm going to add a button, I'm going to do a click, and I'm going to just, call this thing login. So, and our button is going to be login. So if I look at this now, I have a password, and then I'm going to have login. So my login button doesn't do anything yet. But what I need to do now is just change my code a little bit now, right? Because I'm going to comment this out for just a second. What we want to do is have our login function, and then our login function is going to check our password for us, and then we need to just set a flag, a property that tells us if we're logged in correctly or not here. So instead of check password, we're going to call this thing login, and what I'm going to do, instead of returning something, I'm going to say we can say, logged in. We can say logged in. That's totally fine. So here I can just go ahead and do this dot logged in equals if this dot password is equal to ABC. So, and then inside of our component here, we can totally, instead of, all these ngIfs, if logged in, do this. Now that checking if it's a bad password, that's a little bit different, right? We can't really use one flag for that, so we're gonna have one more property for that here. So I'm just gonna say bad password. We're just gonna call it that. So, and now we can actually flip this around. Actually, we could do it like this. I can just go ahead and say this dot bad password is going to be equivalent. These two things, are not equal to each other. We can totally do something like that. So now here I'm going to check if bad password, we're going to display an error. So if logged in, we have secret stuff. Otherwise, we're going to have a bad password. So if I just click login here, okay, wrong password, type something, wrong password. If we do ABC, that should go away. Now I have secret stuff. So there's, as you can see, guys, like I could have done this a bunch of different ways. That's the cool thing about Angular, is that you just have the power and flexibility to do it however you want. That's just programming in general. Do you guys have any questions on that? I know I'm going a little bit fast forward, so let me know. Tell me to slow down, and I'll definitely slow down.
No, I got it.
Okay. Linda, you're good?
It makes sense.
All good.
Okay.
So we could use that like in the homework in the when we have the input boxes where it says my name is. Where
Yep, that's.
and that's all three input boxes.
Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, let's actually let's do that. Let's go ahead and I'm going to just copy paste that into here. So I'm going to create another in our basics here, just a about me component. And we're going to copy that and we're going to do, hey, you know what? This is a perfect opportunity. Never mind. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to have you guys do this instead. So this would be perfect. Take and create the about me component that we just did, for the homework, that just copy paste the code from it, but add ngIf. So if you don't have your name, your age, and your favorite item, then that sentence doesn't show up at the bottom. Does that make sense?
It does.
You guys want about like 10 minutes for that? And Danny, it's probably this is also a good opportunity for you if you want to play with it. So how about, we'll do 10, maybe 15 minutes.
Sounds good.
Can you show us your code?
Do what? I'm sorry?
Can you show us your if statement that you did?
Yeah. So here, I will leave. How about this? I will leave this code up here. Oops. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, that's
There we go. So here's my here's my markup, and then here's my actual.
Thank you.
I don't think you need that. You just need the markup really, but.
Yeah, 'cause I can't remember the format.
Yeah, it'll take a little bit. Anytime you see an asterisk, that means it's going to change the actual DOM. Like like if it's an ngFor, it's going to repeat a tag. If it's a ngIf, it's going to show it or hide it, or include it or exclude it. So, and there's a couple other ones. There is actually like an ng switch. There's a bunch of them, but ngFor and ngIf, those are your most common ones.
I think so.
Formatting is what's.
Yeah, with Angular, it takes just a little bit to get used to it because you're basically writing JavaScript expressions inside of a string, right? Inside of double quotes. So that can take a little bit to get used to, and because if you try to do that in regular JavaScript, it's going to fail and it's going to throw a bunch of errors and not be happy. So it is a little bit of a paradigm shift, but just as you get used to it, it gets easier and better. Let's see. Seth, besides ngIf, is there anything else I missed from last week?
No, I mean the other NGs you don't really use that.
Yeah, ng switch.
You just want to like show them it, but not have them really do anything with it.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna show it. I want to instead probably go over ngFor again and just make sure that you guys are comfortable with that. Because I think that that's one of the most powerful pieces, just to be able to iterate over an array or an object, and that's something that's with ngIf and ngModel, those things those are going to be your probably 90% of the tags, probably 95% of the tags are used in Angular. So we're going to use, property bindings. We kind of went over that a little bit, and we'll brush up on those. But let's go ahead. Let me see. Oh, how about then, really quick, before we move on, let me just go over the about me kind of how I would do it, just so you guys can see. I'm sure, there's not really many ways to do this, but we'll just go over it together here. So I created an about me component here. Yeah, you guys are right. It's really noisy over there.
Yeah, and they're breaking, and so they're all talking. Yeah, it's better when someone's presenting.
I am going to just verbatim copy what we did from the homework. So, oops. There wasn't anything there. Okay, awesome. So, and let me just go ahead and add this into my component here. Okay, so we were here. So we basically want to make sure that this doesn't show up unless all three of these fields are filled in, right? So the best way to do that is if we just wrap this whole thing in a div, and we spelled div correctly, not dib. So we can do ngIf here, and we want to first of all make sure name is populated, right? So if we do this, then our code, that's not going to show up unless we have something inside of name. So, and we could, I mean, if this is all you knew, you didn't know anything else, you could go and do another div in here and say, hey, and age, right? You could do something like this and stack them. This is definitely not the way to do it, and then we can do the same thing for favorite, but I just want to show you guys that this will actually work. So if we do something like this, it will work this way, but this is the really long and probably naive approach, just because, you know, you're just learning here. So we can combine these into just one expression. We can do name and age, right? Just like we do in just regular JavaScript. We can do this here. So if I save this, spell my name correctly, and now similar, just following the pattern here, and favorite, right? So let me ask you guys this: how can we make it that it only shows up if your name is at least 3 characters, and you know whatever you put in favorite is at least 3 characters? How can we do that? Length, yeah. So we could do, so if I do if name.length is greater than, I'll say greater than 2 here. So let's try that. So if I save this, I'm going to get an error immediately that says cannot read property length of undefined. Well, this is kind of weird, right? Because most beginners in Angular would run into this and be like, hey, what happened? You know, it's obviously it's defined here. Well, this isn't defined because this just means that my input is going to use this name property, but it's actually not defined yet until somebody types something in input. So there's 2 ways we can fix this. We can first make sure that name exists. So I can say name and name.length is greater than 2. I could do this. So we could, let me just throw some things in here. So now if I do SER, now it shows up, right? Well, this here, I mean, that's going to get kind of verbose, right? Because we're going to have a name and name.length is greater than 2, and age, and favorite, and favorite.length is greater than 2. So this here, this solves it.
Sorry, this is me. My bad.
Oops. You guys good?
Yeah, sorry, I was presenting something else.
So this is one way to do it, but this is kind of long and a little bit verbose, right? So what we can do instead, let me close this, is we can define these things inside of our component. So if our component knows that name, so if I put here that, hey, name is a string, and then just equal to an empty string, and so is favorite. So if I just do something like this, that's fine, I'm going to leave those things there. If I do that, then name is going to already exist, so I don't have to do name and. Same thing with favorite and. I can just do, excuse me, I can just check the length of both of them. So, and now if I go over here, I'm going to see I don't have any errors. I can type something in, and there we go. Does that make sense to you guys?
It does, yeah.
So that's just something, just be careful with ng model. If that thing isn't defined in your actual component, then you're going to run into those little pitfalls. So, and I'm sure Seth has, you know, plenty of, you know, war stories that he can tell you about running into similar problems.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys want to spend any more time on ngIfs, or do you guys want to jump back into loops? So I can give you one more assignment to. How about we do one more assignment just for you guys, just to get the hang of this? We'll do one more small assignment. So here, let me actually write this out. Well, actually, I don't have to write it out. What I want you guys to do is create. Oh, you guys are going to love this. A combination lock where it asks you for three numbers, and basically it's like a combination safe. So you could 5, 6, 7, whatever the combination is. But basically, you enter the three numbers, you press a button, and if it's correct, it'll say safe open. If it's not correct, it'll say sorry, wrong combination. So this is going to combine your ng model and your ngIfs, and plus you have to add a click handler there. So, oh, I'm sorry guys, it's like 10:20. Do you guys want to take a quick break or anything? Or are you guys good? You guys are good? Okay. Do you guys understand the instructions? Okay. Is that a good assignment for you guys? I want to make sure I'm not giving you something too hard or too easy. I think like this is the Goldilocks, teaching here. Okay. Let's do that. Let's take maybe 20 minutes for that. So, and Daniel, are you doing good? Do you need any help? Or is Seth helping you?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure Seth's not neglecting you. Okay. Okay.
Actually, do you want to wait just a minute? Cheryl's coming back to the bathroom.
Oh yeah, no problem. We will wait here. Let me just prep here.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Yep, we're ready. You're good. Nice.
So I'm going to create a new. So basically, we're going to go over the in-class assignment of creating a component that essentially is a safe or a combo lock. So it'll ask you for three numbers, and if you get them right, it'll say safe unlocked. If not, it'll give you some error message. So just create this combo component here. And as usual, we have to go into our app component HTML and make sure it's in here. Okay, so here, and we're going to go in here and test really quick. Okay, combo works, so we're good. Okay. Let's go ahead and do our three numbers here. So I'm going to do input, type equals number, our banana in a box, ng model, and I'm going to say num1. So first of all, like anything else in coding, there's a bunch of different ways to do this, right? I'm going to do the simplest way to do this first, and then we'll discuss the different more advanced or cleaner solutions for this. So there's our three numbers. So here, let's go ahead and just label this combo. And then finally, we're going to add a button. And I'm going to say unlock. We can do this without the button. But I'll add a button so that way it takes a little more effort on the user if they want to try to brute force this. So, and ideally, we want to also do some kind of div here, and I'm going to say ngIf unlocked. Safe unlocked. We'll do that. So, okay, so we have numbers 1, 2, and 3, and we have an unlock function here. So let's go into our component here. I'm going to, as usual, just remove all these things. And there is a way, Angular makes these components from templates called schematics, and you can actually edit these, and you can totally change what Angular includes by default. So it's completely customizable. Those are just more advanced topics, and we won't get into customizing schematics in this class. Here. So we're going to have num1. I'm going to start all these at 1, even though we don't have to default it to anything. But then our unlock function, oops, and then I need one more property here called unlocked. I'm going to say here false. And we could do this a couple ways, right? The most direct is just going to say this dot unlocked is going to equal this dot num1. So I'm going to say my numbers, I'm going to use 6, 5, and 7. So if number 1 is equal to 6, and this dot number 2 is equal to 5, and this dot number 3 equals 7. So this unlocked will be true if this is true, and this is true, and this is true. So let's save that, and let's give this thing a whirl. So if I try unlocking right now, nothing's going to happen. Let's pull up my console. I don't have any console errors, so it should be working. So if I go here, what did I say, 6, 5, 7, 6, 5, and 7, it's going to say safe unlocked. Awesome. So if it's wrong, it'll tell you that. So it's also, so this here is the very basics of it, right? So pretty easy, and we don't even have to default these if I wanted to. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we do, because we're using them here. I could default them to null or something, but they're numbers, so this is okay. Let's do one more thing and just have a message pop up if it's the wrong combo, right? So I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna call it failed. So if you unlock, I'm gonna say this dot failed equals not of this dot unlocked, right? So, and this is an important distinction, that even though these things here, they're essentially opposite of each other, the reason we're doing this is that we can do a test here for failed, ngIf failed, we can do like this. We just said if ngIf if not unlocked, then it would always show wrong combo whenever we, before we enter in any input. So now if I hit this wrong combo, okay. So 6, 5, 7. I think that's what it was. Maybe.
Yeah, it was.
5, 6, 7. That's what it was. No.
It's 6, 5, 7.
6, 5, 7. Okay, cool. 6, 5. I forgot my own combo. Okay, yay, safe unlocked. Okay. So, seeing that, what do you guys think? Because that took a little bit. Well, it took a little bit of time. That's okay. What was the hardest part of that?
I was trying to use the ngIf first, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be doing that. So I was in the wrong thinking mode.
Mm-hmm.
Is where I was at.
And Linda?
I got it. The part I struggled with was just if the safe is not unlocked, getting that part.
Yeah, that's a little tricky. And Danny, did you have luck with yours? Or
I got, so if there was, I stopped because I was just a friend with much. Watching you though is pretty simple. This dot, that's just the name I guess for.
yeah, you're gonna have to catch up to the Tour of Heroes, or just watch the video from last week, and it'll fill in all those gaps about this.
I figured it would be. So yeah, no, that's fine. It makes sense when you put it on the screen. So.
Well, let me ask you guys here. We're gonna do one more little piece to this, and I'll actually leave my code up here. But what I want you guys to do is take our combo lock and add in one more thing, is where it keeps track of how many failed attempts you have, and if you have more than 3 failed attempts, you can't try anymore. It'll just hide everything on the screen, or give you an error message, or the button will be disabled. So you have 3 attempts to get the combo right, or you're locked out. What do you guys think about that?
Okay.
Alright.
This will be the last one for ngIfs, and then we'll move on to ngFors. I just want to hammer this home for you guys. And I will, here. And just so we're starting at the same place, I'll go ahead and just leave this, my code on screen in case you guys just want to see it. Let me see if I can turn on word wrap here. Actually, that's okay. It's going to cut off a little bit. Or can you guys see it if I make this a little smaller?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay. So basically, what I want you guys to do is if you enter the wrong code 3 times, it will go ahead and either disable the button or just hide everything or just say that, hey, no more attempts, anything like that. So you guys can be creative there. So here, I will leave this up. I think after this, I think you guys will be ngIf experts. All right, so we left off taking our combo program here, and basically it's letting you know if you had too many attempts and locking you out. So I am presenting already. Awesome. So let's go through here. So basically we need a way to count how many attempts, right? So I'm going to add another variable into our component here. I'm going to just call it attempts. This here, guys, this is also called, what we're doing here, this is called state management, because each of these things controls something from our view, right, from our HTML. And these things here, this is essentially the state of the application, right? So our applications can, before we added attempts, we have 3 numbers and we have 2 Boolean flags, and that's the state of our application. So we can always, if we saved whatever was in here and then reloaded it, we would be back to whatever numbers we had in here, whatever was being displayed. So, and that whole thing there is going to take a little bit of time for you guys to get used to defining the state, figuring out like, hey, I'm trying to create a combination lock. Okay, well, it has 3 numbers. I know I'm going to need at least 3 numbers. I'm probably going to need something to know if it's locked or unlocked. And that there just could be just not trial and error, but you just getting familiar with it and defining these things. So, okay, so we have our next stage is going to be attempts. How many failed attempts? Okay, so what we want to do is every time we unlock, I want to basically say if this dot failed. I can just do some one line, that's fine. This dot attempts plus plus. So if we got it wrong, I want to go ahead and increment this. And notice that this here, I could say instead of this dot failed, I can say if not this dot unlocked. Those 2 things are the same. It doesn't really matter how we get this. Or I could even say if not this expression here, this dot attempts plus plus. So now on the screen here, I'm going to go ahead just somewhere over here, just show our attempts, just so we have it somewhere so we can see what's going on. Attempts. Okay. So now I have attempt 0, so I'm going to... So, attempts 0, attempts 1, 2, 3. So we're good here. So what we want is now a message or something come up if we had too many attempts. So one thing that we could do is we could wrap our entire template here in a big ngIf, right? So this would be probably the easiest way. So I can say ngIf attempts is less than 3. We're going to display, let's try that again. We're going to display our application. So if I save this here, I'm going to see attempts 1, 2, 3, and everything disappears. Well, okay. That doesn't really tell you what happened, so I'm going to do one more div and say, hey, if attempts is greater than or equal to 3, too many attempts, valuables are gone forever. Okay. So done. And obviously you can refresh and you get your valuables back. That's okay. That's a separate problem. This here, guys, is pretty much the most straightforward way of doing this and the easiest. What kind of solutions did you guys have? Out of curiosity, how did you guys solve it? You had a what? I'm sorry.
A counter.
A counter. Okay. Just like attempts as a counter. Yep.
Yeah, and I just said this dot counter plus plus, and then I said if this counter is equal to 3, then I had locked out equals true, and then when the locked out was true, I just disabled my HTML.
That's perfect. Yep. So we could have done the exact same thing because we could, instead of doing this whole ngIf business, I can comment this out. I can just say on my unlock button, I can say disabled equals, and I'm not sure if Seth explained this to you. I suck. Okay.
Alright.
Thank you guys. Hey, by next year, I promise I'll be an expert at this whole like sharing my screen. So, Danny, I'm not sure if Preston, if Seth went over property bindings. I heard Seth was displaying something on the whiteboard there. So, but basically, we can our button, if we just say that's disabled, you can't press it. But with Angular, we can do the square brackets to say that hey, this property is going to be controlled by this expression. So I'm going to say it's going to be disabled if attempts is greater than or equal to 3, then my button will be disabled. So if I do something like this now, so 1 attempt, 2 attempt, 3 attempts, here's my message, and then my button, I can't click anymore. It's gone. So that's probably an even better solution to it than doing like a big ngIf. So Cheryl, I'm totally going to steal that from you. So
Alright. Well, I did it with 2 variables, so it's better to do 1. So,
yeah, that's okay. Let's see. Linda, how did you do yours?
So that's how I ended. I started to actually push it into an array to count.
Uh-huh.
Because I struggled at the very beginning. I was using the equals. Instead of the equals, I was doing colons for the variables. So I was struggling to get the variable in there. So I was actually going to push it into an array. And then I came back to where we were.
So yeah, doing it with the array, that's probably overkill for it, but
well, that's where I go.
yeah, no, that's good.
So I did the same thing.
And Danny, did you get yours working?
Oh.
Danny, did you have any luck with yours?
Honestly, I've just been watching. I've
Okay.
been doing a little bit, but
No problem.
We've been looking over our shoulders, which is fine.
So I think we have exhausted ngIf. So how about we move on to ngFor and loops. So we went over that last week. It was pretty quick, and it definitely wasn't as in depth as now, as like what we're doing now with ngFor. So let's kind of take a step back and go over it again. And I think it'll be great review for Danny as well, because like I said, your ngIf, your ngFor, and your ng model, that's going to be 95 to 99% of the stuff that you're going to use with Angular. The rest are going to be your property bindings. You might do like your click handlers and stuff, but like, okay, 90%. Then your property bindings and click handlers would be the other 10%. So let's dive in here. So I'm going to show my screen here. And we'll do the same thing, guys. I'll do a really quick, because I actually kind of like this format. I think this works much better for you. Me just doing something, showing you on screen, and then having you guys spend 10-15 minutes and just going over it, making sure that you guys got a handle of it. Are you guys good with that format?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good to apply it, certainly.
It's what, I'm sorry?
It's good to apply it.
Okay, awesome. I want to make sure that because there has to be a fine balance between me teaching you guys the material and you guys applying it. I want to make sure that we our class time is valuable, but it's a lot easier to assign this stuff as homework. You don't really have anyone to ask, or it's been already 5 or 6 days since you saw it last. So if you get to apply it like right after you learn it, I think that's the best time for it. So okay, so our basics here, we have all this craziness in here. We're going to create, let's see, we're going to create another component here. And you guys can just watch this, and I'll leave it on screen, and you guys can kind of try, I'll give you another variant of it. So let's do ng generate component. I'm going to just call this thing arrays. We're going to go over arrays here, so with Angular. app arrays. Okay, so, and as usual, because we're good developers, we're going to go and check, make sure that, yep, app arrays works. Okay. So, my template here and this. So basically what we want to do is create an array and be able to loop over it in our code. So I'm going to do a very simple array as a property here of numbers, right? So I'm just going to define some numbers here, and I want to display these in our code, right? So remember when we did jQuery, we would have to create the element, we would have to go ahead append it. It wasn't like terribly hard, but it took a little bit of work, right? With Angular, it is extremely easy. I can say define just a regular div, and then I can do the asterisk, meaning it's a structural tag that we're going to do. It's going to be ngIf or ngFor, and we're going to say ngFor let number of numbers. So numbers is our array that we have defined, and number is our temporary variable to hold whatever place that we're at on it. So I'm just going to go in here and say number. So doing something, these 3 lines here, I can go back in my code and look at this. Here's my entire array, right? Or I'm sorry, not my code. I can go back into my application and I see everything that's inside of our array. Guys, I think that's pretty neat. When I first saw this compared to jQuery, I was like, oh my gosh, this is heaven on earth now.
Yes, it's fast.
The other thing that we can do, this is a little bit more advanced, I just want to show you guys this. We can also say, we can do a little semicolon here and say let I equals index, for example, and then we can also say here index, or I'm sorry, I'm saying I here, and this will tell us what index of the array it's on now. So I'm going to say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these here, this is just a template, so I can say I plus 1 here, so I can totally say, number, I plus 1 is number. So now I'm going to have number 1 is blah. So it is extremely flexible, and I definitely understand that when you're first learning, and like this is, if this is Danny's first time of seeing ngFor, he'll be like, what the heck is this? This is probably a little bit opaque until you get familiar with it and you get used to it. Right, so I'm actually not going to erase this. I'm going to just do a horizontal rule here, and we're going to leave this up here. So that way we just have it for later. Let me show you also one more thing that I don't think I did a good job of showing last time is everything that we've been doing is on a div, but we can totally include these things on any kind of element that we want. So I can go ahead and say, for example, my lotto numbers, and then I could do something like a span, and I could do the span ngFor equals what I'm going to say n here of numbers, because this here, whatever your temporary variable is, has nothing. It doesn't have to be minus an s of whatever variable it is. I can just say let n of numbers, and in here I'm just going to output n. And this let n, wherever you do this, or let number and n is only going to be available inside the tag that you're ngForing over. So if I go down here and I say n, I'm going to just do n colon here. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to see anything for n. But here's my span. Here's my numbers. Well, like a span obviously doesn't have any spaces in it, so all of them run together. So okay, so that's not great. But I can go ahead and just do a space inside of there. And here are my numbers. So, and again, n here, it's completely blank. If we do an inspect on here, inspect on our number. Well, that's not very convenient. I'll try that again. Oh, okay, right here. So num arrays. So we go here and we see, okay, my lotto numbers, here's n, and there's nothing there because n doesn't exist outside of our span. Do you guys have any questions so far on this? So far, so good? Okay. So, let me also show you, and obviously this, we can do this with any tag, right? I can go ahead and, just to hammer this home, if I wanted to do this with, here, my list, and I do unordered list, and these things inside here, they're just going to be LIs instead of spans. I can totally do that. So now I have a UL and an LI here. So there's, they're very, very versatile. So we can repeat or loop over anything we want. Like table rows, that's the biggest thing that numbers are, or arrays are very, very good for, is looping over table rows and things. So I'm going to leave these things here just if you guys need them for reference. Actually, before we move on table rows, how about we do, I'm going to give you guys a really quick assignment here. So let me show you one more thing though. These numbers, what if we didn't know our numbers up front and we need to dynamically generate them? So say, for example, like we're going to get the numbers from the server, or you just wanted to print the numbers 1 to 100. The way that you would do that, instead of defining them here, I could say, yeah, generally you want to avoid doing those in Angular, so you would just do this ngFor, but what you would do is inside, this is where your constructor actually comes in handy. Your constructor, this is a function that runs whenever your component is initialized, is created, your constructor runs. So here I could do a for loop and say, for var I equals 1 to I to, for example, 100 here, I plus plus, and then I can say this dot all nums dot push I. So if I did this, then all nums is going to have numbers 1 to 100, right? 1 to 99 actually. Here we'll have 1 to 100, and then inside of my component, I'm going to do the same thing and basically just loop over here all my numbers. I'm just going to copy this, all my numbers here, and this is just going to be n of all nums. And I save this, and I'm going to see, spelling is hard, but I'm going to see all my numbers here. So that there is dynamically generated. Does that make sense?
It does. Can you explain the constructor just again?
Yeah. So anytime, this isn't, so we have three different things going on here, right? We have regular JavaScript. We have TypeScript, this new fancy thing that, ironically, there's no TypeScript here. Well, this is called decorator. That's actually part of TypeScript. But anyway, so we have JavaScript, TypeScript, and Angular all together, right? So this constructor, this is something that's just part of JavaScript. So this isn't something to Angular or anything like that. So you can do JavaScript classes that we didn't go over, but just a constructor is whenever a class is constructed, whenever it's created, this function always runs, and it runs always exactly once. So you can't call the constructor, like you can't, I can't later have a button that says, this.constructor. This just runs once by itself, and that's it. So it's a very special built-in function. And whenever you create a new component, Angular always throws a constructor in there for you, so you don't have to remember it. You just see constructor, you're like, oh, this is where I'm going to put my code.
So it's always created when you create the class? That's what I understand.
Yeah, so if I could create the component, so here, I'm going to create a new component called temp. That component, temp, that's created, it will always have a constructor. It is special because it's built, it's called from the class, so you can view it as special, but it's really no different. Like what you put inside there is no different than a regular JavaScript function. So I'm going to delete my temp here, and it gets Angular automatically puts inside of my app.module, so I'm going to delete it here as well. Okay. So I'm going to just leave this code up here. So what I want you guys to do is to play around with this. Create me, also the numbers have loop through 1 to 100 on the screen, and then create 2 more separate arrays and loops that just do 1 to 100 by 2s and 1 to 100 by 3s. So you count to 1 to 100 by 1s, and then count by 2s and then by 3s. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead and... Is this helpful, guys, for me to leave this on screen for you?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I will leave this on screen here. How about 10 minutes? What do you guys think? Or 15?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay. So Cheryl ran into some problems with her code, so we're going to debug it live now. There we go. Okay, cool. Well, we see your screen, Cheryl. Just now go to your actual code.
It's running right now. Can you see it?
Well, yeah, so Cheryl, look at... Yeah, the problem is you're saying j plus 2. You're not saying plus equals 2. So your code is looping here indefinitely. Your computer's going to run out of memory, and it's probably going to lock up shortly.
Oh, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So what do I need to do?
Well, see the j plus 2, that's not, you're not changing j, right? You need to say j equals j plus 2 or j plus equals 2. Yeah, plus equals is the way you add on. It's basically like plus equals 1. So, okay, so save this, and hopefully your computer doesn't lock up.
Okay.
Okay? So that's...
I got it. Okay.
Okay. So do you guys need a few more minutes, or are you guys good?
Then I would do that with my 3 as well.
Okay, well, good. Okay, let's go over that really quick, and then we'll move on to something even more fun. So we're going to, like we saw basically how to create numbers 1 to 100 in the code, you know, pretty easily, right? So let's do, let's actually do this down one more. I should rename my all nums. That's fine here. Nums by 1. I'm going to have nums by 2. And then I'm going to have nums by 3. So here I'm looping through all my numbers, right? So this is nums by 1. So I could copy this and paste this and do this nums by 2, and this is just going to be, you know, I can start this thing at 0, loop this way, so, and then I can do the same thing, copy that again, right, and loop it by 3. The other thing that I can do is I can use just one single loop. I can say in here, if I modulus 2 is equal to 0, right, so if I divide it by 2 and there's no remainder, I'm going to say this dot nums by 2 dot push I. And similar, I can do the exact same thing for 3s. So if it's divisible by 3 with no remainder, I'm going to just push it into nums by 3. So I'm going to save that, and now let's go to our actual front end. So let's rename these things. Numbers by 1, or by, I guess, by 1s. We'll do that, and this is nums by 1. And then we'll add a break here, and then we'll copy this, nums by 2, nums by 3. So if we save this, we look at our code, we're going to have a whole bunch of stuff here, right? I probably need to do more breaks, but here's 100 numbers. Here's numbers 2, 4, 6, all the way to 100. And here's by threes, 3, 6, 9, 12, 96, 99. What do you guys think of this approach? Does it make sense?
It does, yes.
How did you guys just do yours with multiple loops?
I did.
Okay, and that's totally fine. That is totally fine.
Right?
It's 3 separate problems, and we're gonna break up, into 3 separate solutions, right? 3 separate loops. That is totally fine. Another thing that we can do, I'll assign that for homework, is counting by making this an array of numbers by something. So that'll probably be a good homework assignment. So count by, count by ones all the way through by tens. So, but make everything dynamic. So I think that'll be a fun homework assignment for you guys. But one thing I wanted to show you is doing with ngFor is looping over objects. So we're going to create one more. I'm just going to call this thing object arrays. Because we saw that we can loop over numbers, we can loop over strings, but we can also loop over any kind of object, right? So here's my object arrays. Okay, here we go. So I always do that, okay. And let me go into my app component.html. So this is going to be app object arrays. Okay. Let's make sure that it works. Awesome. So now what we want to do is we want to have a couple objects. So let's say that we have an array of friends. So name, Mike, phone, because we're developers, we obviously rank order our friends, which ones we're, closer friends with. Susan's going to be a 7. We'll change around these phone numbers, whatever. We'll have one more in here. Sean. So Sean can be a 6 there. And just to be fair, we'll have one more. Katie. We'll do Katie. Okay, so we want to display this on, and we actually like Katie the best, so she'll be a rank 9 here. So we want to display this inside of our markup. We want to display this kind of in a clean way, right? So the best way, because these are objects, the best way to display this would be probably a table, right? So how can we do that? What do you guys think?
Well, it's dot link in ngFor.
Yeah, so first, let's go ahead and just create our table structure. So I'm going to do a header here. I'm going to do a t header for my friend's name here. And next week, guys, we're going to add Bootstrap to this, so this stuff here is going to look much, much, much better. So tphone, and then rank. So this is our header. Now we want to loop over our actual object. So what we want to do is essentially have TDs for every single, our friend.name. We want to have another one for our friend.phone and our friend.rank, right? That's kind of the structure that we want. So obviously this here won't work because friend's not defined here. Well, if we add ngFor on this tr element, then we can have it defined. So let friend of friends. So if I just save this, look what I get. I get my table of friends, That to me, that's super awesome and super quick. So, and we can take this, because I actually went a lot faster than I thought. I'm actually going to just continue just teaching here because we only have about 9 minutes left. So, but let me show you if we wanted to make this, dynamic where I can add friends to it. So, one more thing. Let me show you how we can rank these friends right now because we added this rank in here. We can do this a couple different ways. We can order this inside of our code, right? So I can go ahead and say here inside of so this is actually, I'm going to bring back my constructor here. My constructor, I'm going to say this.friends equals this.friends.sort. And now sort, have you guys seen .sort before on array?
Yes.
Okay.
For priority.
We what?
The priority?
Yeah, okay, so very good. So we're going to sort these. I'm just going to say return a.rank minus b.rank. And I'll be honest, I never remember which one it is. I think it's actually b minus a is what I want. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, awesome. Nailed it. You have a 50-50 chance of getting it right, so. But now our friends are always in rank order, right? Pretty cool. Well, what if I wanted to make this where I can add more friends to here? So I wanted to just add some inputs. So what I'm going to do is essentially add something really quick. I'm going to go ahead and add an input for the person's name. And I'm actually going to use placeholders here so I don't have to add labels. So I'm just going to do this here as name. Now let's go ahead and do an ng model. So we're just going to create, I'm going to call it, because we have friend here in our loop, I'm not going to call my ng model friend, even though I totally could. I'm going to call it new friend so that way everybody knows that this is just one that we're about to add. So new friend.name. And then I'm going to basically copy this. Our next one is our friend's phone. New friend.phone, and our third one here is going to be their rank. This is going to be rank. I'm going to go ahead and say type equals number, and the minimum for this thing is going to be 1. So if you're if your friendship is less than 1, you shouldn't be in my friends list, right? So we're going to add a button here, add friend, and really that's it. So let's see what this looks like. So first of all, this is going to fail. So we're going to get a big fat error here saying that cannot read property name of undefined. And this is happening on object arrays component.html on line 1. The :1 means it's on line 1. So I can go ahead here and say that, okay, so I can't read name of undefined. Well, new friend is undefined, right? Because it's not defined anywhere inside of our component. So I'm going to just say new friend. And I could just set this to an empty object, and that will actually fix all this. So now it'll let me run all this. So I can go ahead and specify something here. Okay, so add friend, that still doesn't work, but no big deal. So I'm going to go ahead now define my add friend function. In add friend, all it's going to do is say, hey, this.friends.push this.newFriend. And this.newFriend, what isn't it like? So this.newFriend, it's an empty object here. So this is TypeScript trying to protect me from myself. It sees that, notice here, it's saying that, hey, type empty object is missing the following properties from type. So it's missing a name, it's missing a phone, it's missing a rank. Well, it got these from my friends array. So TypeScript is really smart, and it's saying that this object doesn't have any of those properties I need. So I could go in here and say, hey, name is blank, phone is blank, and rank is going to be null, for example. It'll let me do that. So then it's quiet about that. Then we're good. So let's try this. So I'm going to add Sergi in here, whatever, and rank. Of course, Sergi is a level 10 friend. So hit add. Awesome, that shows up. So notice that all this information still stays here. So that's less than ideal because I can keep adding. So what I want to do is clear those fields out, right? So I can basically just reset it back by saying this.newFriend equals a new object with blank name, blank phone, empty rank. So, and now I can go ahead and add somebody and it clears out, right? But notice that add friend, I can still add more. They're just blank. So if I actually did put something in here, I have all these blanks in here because I have empty objects that got added, right? So obviously we can just use an ngIf, or even better, we can use a disabled property by saying that this button is going to be disabled if no new friend dot name or no new friend dot rank. So I don't really care if you had a phone number or not, because if you're my friend, I have your phone numbers memorized anyways. So I'm gonna skip that. Add. So the last thing that we're missing here is when you add something, notice that it's not ranked anymore, right? So I added, my buddy Matt, and he's at the very bottom, even though he should be at the top. So what we want to do is rerun, whenever we add somebody, we want to rerun our sort for our friends, right? So I could really easily just copy paste this code in here and that's done. But now we have the same code twice, and there's this concept in programming called dry, which stands for don't repeat yourself. Because now if I say that actually I want to rank by, or I want to sort this by their rank and by, for example, how close they are. Well, then I have to change that logic in two different places, right? What's easier is just add another method here. I'm going to just call one, just add one called sort friends. So sort friends is going to do all that, and then inside of my constructor, all I'm going to do is just call this dot sort friends. And then same thing inside of my add friend function, I'm just going to call this dot sort friends. So if I save this now, I have my friends sorted here. I'm going to go ahead, add Sergi. I'm going to add him as just a rank 8. And let's see what happens. So, okay, awesome. Let's add Stephanie. She's not that great of a friend, so she'll go to the bottom. And then let's add Jimmy. Jimmy is my best friend here. So we see really quickly, guys, with Angular, with, even with comments, we have 30 lines of code in our actual component, and then we have less than 20 inside of our markup. And we basically made a phone directory. Obviously, this doesn't save anywhere, but we can have this save. To remember how easy it was to save something to MongoDB, we can do that in 10 lines of code. So, really quick, do you guys have questions about this here, doing this with objects? And I apologize, I know I was going through this pretty quick, but I wanted to fit this in. Do you guys have any questions about how we did this or anything?
No, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's awesome how quick you're able to do it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's very, and that's why like MeanStack, it's so popular because of how rapid you could do things. You can, you can have an idea like, hey, I want to create this thing where I can catalog trees that I see in my front yard. I don't know, and you could, write that up in an hour, whatever, and go publish it. So that's what makes MeanStack so powerful. What I'll do, guys, I'll commit all this here, and for the homework last week, I did a little bit light just because I didn't know where everybody was. This week, I'm going to do a little bit more and just publish it immediately of just going over, part 1 will be just about if statements, going over that again, and then just about regular loops, and then loops over objects, and then kind of combine them together, making something like we did here where you're going to combine looping over something and adding information where you're kind of combining all 3 or 4 elements. Are you guys good with that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Do you guys have any questions before we go?
I just wanted to know, how do you know what you should put in that constructor?
Whatever you want to run whenever your application first starts. So if, for example, this, me, I've been coding for such a long time. To me, it makes sense. But if you're new to coding and, for example, you sort your stuff and you don't have a constructor, for example, you want to sort your friends and we don't have a constructor, look what happens. Our friends, 8, 7, 6, 9, well, okay, that's not sorted. But as soon as I add somebody, it sorts everything for me. So, I would think, okay, I just have to have that sort function run whenever this thing starts, right? So And I know that, hey, I can use ng on init when it starts, or I can use the constructor. So, because, I remember that weird guy Sergi lecturing a while ago, and he said something about the constructor runs every single time a component is created. So, I would try adding a constructor and then adding my code that I would want to run just once when it's created. And that would be my send or sort friends function. So a lot of it is just going to be...
To run when something starts, you need to put it in the constructor.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I got it.
So a lot of the stuff we're going to do next week, we're going to bring in the back end and kind of start tying these things all together. Like, then the week after we'll bring in MongoDB and then push again to Heroku and just have a full application. And then we're going to be using the constructor a lot more because as soon as your application loads, we want to get data from the server immediately, right? So if we have a shopping list, we want to capture that from the server immediately. So we would add those calls in the constructor.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it'll just take a little bit of time to get used to it. So
Okay. Thank you.
okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much.